Today, I'm gonna show you guys 3 healthy and veg-heavy meals that require only an oven and a sheet tray to make. All 3 of these recipes will only take about 15 minutes of active prep time, and then the rest of the cook time is totally passive. That means tons of extra time for fun stuff like looking at Brian Lag videos on your phone, petting your cat, or gaming. You know, fun stuff. The first dish is a Greek-inspired chicken with some crispy potatoes and a weird but spectacular vegetable side that tastes kind of like lasagna. To make it, I'll start with 6 skin-on, bone-in chicken thighs. By the way, all 3 recipes in this video will make 6 adult-sized portions, but if one 5-ounce chicken thigh isn't enough for the big dog in your house, then you can definitely sneak in 2 or 3 more thighs. Now, I'll just scoot these thighs into a medium bowl, then grab 3 large russet potatoes and give them a peel. Well, actually, I'm only gonna peel off about half of the skin because I really like that earthy potato skin texture and flavor, but too much of it creates steam during the roast and inhibits crispness. Next, I'll just cut each russet in half, then cut that half in half, then cut that quarter into an eighth. I want potatoes that will cook in roughly the same time it takes to roast my chicken thighs, so they need to be chunky, about 8 pieces per potato. Now, I'll just scoot these into my chicken bowl, then season everything with 40 grams of olive oil, 20 grams of salt, 2 grams of black pepper, 2 grams of chili flake, 5 grams of garlic powder, 2 grams of dried thyme, and then 2 grams of dried oregano. Once everything's in the bowl here, I'll just jump in and toss to get the chicken and potatoes evenly coated. Next, I'll lay all 6 thighs out onto a sheet tray, then snuggle up my potatoes alongside with the cut side facing down. You definitely want to make sure everything has its own space on the sheet tray here so that everything roasts evenly and we don't create any localized steam. From here, I'll just load this sheet tray into a preheated 450F oven and roast it for about 40 minutes. This is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes longer than my second sheet tray, which will be filled up with my veggies. To prep those, I'll grab 3 medium zucchinis and then quarter them. From here, I like to zip out the mushy, wet seed layer in the middle, but you definitely don't have to do this if you're in a hurry. Next, I'll turn those deseeded quarters into roughly 1-inch size pieces, and in total I need 450 grams or about 1 pound of chopped zucchini. Next, I'll take 1 medium onion and roughly chop that down into small pieces. In total, I want about 250 grams. Now, once chopped, I'll just scoot those into the same bowl I used for the chicken and potatoes alongside the zucchini. I washed it, by the way. Then I'll add in 5 to 6 cloves of fresh garlic that I'll smash with my garlic press. In that goes. Then I'll grab 1 28-ounce can of nice tasting whole peeled tomatoes. I like these over cherry tomatoes because they're softer and they don't have skins that are hard to chew once they're roasted. And I think the cooked quality of a canned tomato unifies this vegetable dish in a pretty special way. Now, once I've got my whole peeled tomatoes roughly chopped, I'll add them into my veggie bowl, then add in 20 grams of olive oil, 100 grams of Greek olives, 2 grams of oregano, 2 grams of black pepper, 10 grams of salt, 1 200-gram block of feta cheese. I'll just crumble that in carefully. Try to keep it chunky if you can. It's gonna break down as we toss this to combine, and then it's gonna break down more later when we mix things after the bake. Pre-crumbled feta would also work if you can't find a nice block, but try and find a nice block. This is Valbriso sheep's milk feta, and it's pretty widely available and tastes super sick. It's creamy, it's milky, and salty in exactly the way that feta can and should be. Next, I'll just toss everything to combine real quick, making sure not to smush that feta into a paste. Then I'll pour everything out onto a second sheet tray, spread it from edge to edge, and then load it into my 450F oven above my roasting chicken. From here, I'll just let all of that roast together for 30-ish minutes, and then go do something fun. And after 40 to 45 minutes, I'll pull out my potato chicken tray.
Ooh, look at that skin, bro.
Yes, bro, look at that skin. It's not flabby at all, and it's nice and roasty looking. Now, let's check those potatoes. I'll just flip one over, and as you can see, the sheet tray side has gotten deeply golden brown and has gotten all fried up and crispy in that rendered chicken fat. It's like a chunky Greek French fry. Okay, let's pull out the veggies now. As you can see, they look kind of like a pizza. The zucchini is nice and tender, the tomatoes are concentrated, and the feta has taken on some golden brown color. Oh, you guys, and the olives are also very roasty. That's an underrated bite in this entire dish. To plate this up, I'll just spoon some chicken and potatoes on a plate, and then whatever I'm calling this, let's say Greek vegetable bake, I'll just scoop some of that onto the plate, and that's that. It's not pretty, but I can assure you guys, it is so freaking flavorful.
Chicken is super juicy. The skin is really well rendered. The whole thing tastes like oregano, which is sick. And then when you combine these crispy potatoes with this feta cheese tomato veggie thing, it's like Greek tasting lasagna. It's so good.
Next up, I've got a vegetarian Indian-inspired dish that I'll call sheet pan sweet potato aloo gobi. To make it, I'll need 2 chunky sweet potatoes. I'll just give those a quick peel. Then to prep them for the sheet tray, I'll cut them into roughly 1-inch planks from top to bottom, maybe slightly thicker. Next, I'll slice those planks into strips and then chop those down into large cubes. In total, I'll need about 750 grams or 1.5 pounds of chunked up sweet potato. Once I got those chopped, I'll move them over to a mixing bowl, then grab a big head of cauliflower. To break it down, working from the bottom, I'll make incisions around the core to detach large florets and then eventually get rid of that woody middle part. Then to prep it for the bake, I'll just work with florets that are about 4 inches across and chop them into roughly 1-inch size pieces. Next, I'll scoot this cauli into my bowl of sweet potatoes, and that is way too small of a bowl, so I'll grab a big boy bowl, then scoot everything into that. Next, I'll grab 1 large onion and rough chop it in pretty much the exact same way as I did for the Greek chicken. I want the onion fully tender in about 30 to 40 minutes, so smaller is better. 250 grams of onions go into the bowl, then I'll grab 1 large poblano pepper, cut it into strips, and then dice it small just like I did for the onion. I'll need roughly 125 grams of poblano, and I'll add that into the bowl. Then I'll smash in 5 to 6 garlic cloves with my press. Then in goes 15 grams of tomato paste, 5 grams of cumin, 5 grams of garam masala, 15 grams of curry powder, 15 grams of salt, 20 grams of olive oil, 1 can of drained garbanzo beans, and then 1 small can of coconut cream, plus 2 of that same can full of water, maybe about 250 grams. If you can't find coconut cream, regular coconut milk would also work just fine. Just leave about 100 grams of the water out. Now, once I've got everything tossed to combine in this bowl, I'll grab a preheated sheet tray from my 450F oven and then dump everything onto it. It's gonna sizzle and bend because there's a temperature variance here. That's okay. Spread everything from edge to edge, then load that sheet tray back into the 450F oven and bake it for 35 to 40 minutes. Bake time is gonna vary pretty widely here depending on your oven's temperature and how large you cut your vegetables. I would say try and check back around minute 35 to make sure that you're not overcooking everything. Now, I don't know about you guys, but over the last 7 or 8 days of the holidays, I ate like an absolute idiot. And now I don't feel so good in general and specifically within my gut. So to get my health back on track, I've got a 3-pronged approach. Number 1 is to get outside and get moving every day so I have more energy. Number 2 is to stop eating processed foods and sugar for a while. And then number 3 is to take my Seed DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. To be clear, Seed is the sponsor of this video, but I have been taking Seed's DS-01 every day for 3 years on my own volition. I actually did a bunch of internet research to find the best probiotic for me 3 years ago, and it was Seed, and I've been taking it every day since. I chose Seed because it's a pre and probiotic that's good for your skin, your heart, and your gut. Plus, all of the strains of bacteria in Seed are clinically or scientifically studied, so you know that they actually do something when they're inside of you. Speaking of being inside of you, Seed uses this clever capsule within a capsule technology to guard all of the bacteria inside to make sure that they actually get to your gut alive so that they can be effective. So if you want to have pro-level BMs like me in the year 2024, then please click the link down below and use my link to get 25% off your first order of Seed. Again, the link is in the description below and use my code. Thank you, Seed. And after 40 minutes of bake time, when I pull out this sheet tray, you can see the tops of the cauli and the sweet potatoes are kissed with some roastiness, and the bottom side of this sheet tray has kind of a stewy, soft vibe going on. That's really nice. But how's the texture? I'll need to taste 1 each of sweet potato and cauli to see, and I think that tastes good. They're tender, but not mushy. Now to finish, I'll add on 3 to 4 dollops of coconut cream to moisten things up and to make this dish a little bit more saucy. Then a huge grip of chopped fresh cilantro, and then a little lime juice to bring some acidity to cut through the coconut cream and the sweetness of the potatoes. To serve, I'll pile it high on top of some steamed rice. And by the way, I loaded up my rice cooker with 450 grams of rice, 600 grams of water, and 8 grams of salt right after loading the sheet tray into the oven, and it was done at just about the same time. That is a veg-heavy dinner that's comforting, hearty, dense with flavor, but still light and sessionable. In my opinion, it's the perfect dish for your New Year's resolution to eat more vegetables and less Uber Eats.
Ooh. Considering this is just a bunch of chopped up vegetables that we baked in the oven for 40 minutes, this dish is surprisingly composed. And in my opinion, it hits just like something that you would make on the stovetop, except for clearly it requires a lot less work.
Okay, the last dish is a miso glazed salmon with a corn and asparagus succotash. To make it, I'll need 6 6-ounce portions of farmed salmon. If you don't like salmon, I would say fresh cod or halibut would be a good sub, but also if you don't like fish in general, chicken thighs would also work. Now to make the glaze for this salmon, I'll combine 25 grams of soy sauce, 25 grams of sesame oil, 10 grams of rice vinegar, 50 grams of honey, and then 100 grams of white miso. To combine it, I'll drop in my immersion blender and puree everything until it's smooth. Or if you don't have an immersion blender, of course, you could just stir this until it's combined and there's no longer any lumps of miso. Once it's made, I'll reserve about half of the glaze for saucing later on or another weeknight sheet tray meal. From here, I'll use the brush to get the glaze on the fish. And don't be shy, the salt in this miso is going to be all the seasoning that the fish gets, so put a lot on there. And once I've got all 6 of my salmons brushed up, I'll set the sheet tray aside to cure briefly while I cut the veggies for my succotash. First up is corn. To prep it, I'll just carefully zip off the kernels from 4 fresh ears. These cobs are usually available year-round at the supermarket, but if you can't find them, frozen corn can work. Just make sure to thaw it first and blot it dry with a paper towel. Next, I'll grab 1 pound of asparagus, cut off the woody stem end, and then cut the spears into 3/4 of an inch thick coins. I'm looking for a particle size that still has that fun asparagus texture that we all love, but gets tender in an oven in about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, once the asparagus is cut down, I'll move it to a bowl with the corn, then grab 2 bunches of scallions. I'll lop off the green end and save that for eating fresh in a salad or something. Then I'll cut the scallions into coins that are roughly the same thickness as the asparagus. Lastly, I'll grab a bunch of broccolini and give it the same treatment. On the floret side especially, I want to cut things small because out of everything in this succotash, those are going to take the longest to get tender, and the last thing we want is punishingly crunchy broccoli under our tender, succulent fish. In total in the bowl here, I've got 400 grams of corn, 250 asparagus, 125 scallion, and 150 broccolini. Next, I'll add in a long squeezer of olive oil, 2 big grips of salt, maybe 10 grams worth, then 20 to 25 cranks of black pepper. Okay, to cook this stuff, I'll snatch a ripping hot sheet tray out of my 450F oven and then spread out my veggies. By the way, in the right context, preheating your sheet tray can shave up to 5 minutes off the cook time. Now the sheet tray goes in and I'll roast these veggies for about 15 to 20 minutes. The salmon is going to cook a lot faster than the veggies, so we'll need to add that in closer to the end of the cook time. So about 20 minutes later, when I check back, you can see the veggies are softening and they're looking roasty, but they still need about 10 more minutes. So I'll sneak my salmon up onto the top rack and roast it at 450 until it's cooked to about medium or 135F. About 7 minutes later, when I pull out my succotash, you can see the green vegetables are looking tender and the corn is taking on a little bit of char around the edges. Okay, let's check back on the salmon. It's been in for about 8 to 10 minutes, so I'll pull it out and you can see that on top we've got some really beautiful color and that miso sauce has reduced into a sticky glaze. Now to plate this up, I'll scoot some succotash onto a warmed plate, then lay down a 6-ouncer of my glazed salmon. To take it one step further and maybe add a little bit of fanciness, I'll add on some of that reserved glaze from earlier, but I did thin it out by adding in a tablespoon each of olive oil and rice vinegar. Anyways, that's what a hot oven, a sheet pan, and about 15 minutes of prep time can get you on a weeknight. I really hope you guys found something useful in this video and use one of these 3 recipes to do some sheet panning for yourself. Ooh, and if you want other weeknight recipe ideas in the meantime, then please check out this video for quick weeknight pastas.